virtually, and thus is able to take part in the meeting as per our rules about that. So there we have it. Open forums. Now is an opportunity to come, if you're not on the agenda, to come up and address council, share thoughts and comments. If anybody wants to come up, now it's time to do it. Anybody? Come on up. Tell us who you are. Tell us what you want to say.
Okay. Well, everybody knows each other here, but I'm Bruce Block, for the record, and I own Sydney's Rose and Custard down in the Point. I've been operating a business for 20 years now, and it's kind of turned into the work of my life, it seems like. I'm here to talk about food trucks on public property, and I kind of wrote this out because this would be a way for me to rein myself in so that I could address the things I wanted to talk about concisely. So I'm just going to read this. I wanted to start by saying that I have had the pleasure of eating a lot of good food from food trucks and the Bad Seeds food truck over the last few years, and I would and have recommended it to anyone. And I have no problem with food trucks operating on private commercially zoned property within the city limits. However, I believe that if the city adopts a policy of allowing food trucks to operate on city land in prime locations, there will be a slew of unintended negative consequences, not only on the operations of existing brick and mortar tax-paying businesses, but on the nature and structure of continued private investment and development in the downtown corridor. I want to distinguish here from food trucks operating on city property for special events, i.e. Fisherman's Picnic, or art and music festivals that have in the past been granted access, and businesses between those and businesses whose primary operating location would be on city property. I've experienced this just last year, that vendors, customers in my area would come and to my establishment to sit and enjoy my facilities, my bathroom, and I was put in an uncomfortable position to have to ask them to leave so my patrons could have a place to sit. And we had one down there. This situation highlights the differences between an established facility and all the expenses that go along with that, and its incompatibility with food trucks operating in close proximity to it. And that's as far as I got. But I also wanted to just point out that there's a part of this that has to do with the way that businesses are developed in the downtown corridor and how people approach investment. And I don't know that if I had the opportunity to run a food truck on Artist Point years ago, that I would have put the effort and money and time into establishing that business down there. You know, it's a short season, and in order to run my business down there, I employ 18 people a year on average, different, and I pay taxes year round and facility costs, and and having the threshold lowered in terms of entrance to business on city property would, I think, create a difficulty for people looking to invest in that kind of a business that I've invested in and continue to run it. There are other things you could do with that property. I could VRBO it and get a food truck, and I could pick the good days to run business and not have to incur the costs. I'm not saying I would do that. I'm just saying that I think those are things to be taken into consideration in terms of how the impact of a ordinance like that would have on investment, and then it begs the question, what kind of development do we want to encourage? And that's it.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Come on up. Tell us who you are and go for it.
Thanks. This is Jason Hale. I'm the new executive director of the HRA for
Hi,
Cook
Jason.
County. Hi. I just want to stop by and say hi, introduce myself. I met Tracy and I've met Anton, who looks like he's in a warmer climate. Well, he did. I don't know where he is now, but I just wanted to say hello and answer any initial questions you had, and just say that it's nice to meet you and you for the first time. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Thanks for
Well, I
stopping by.
Appreciate that. I'll have to get in touch with you and we can sit down and we can chat a little bit more.
I would love that. So yeah, my door's always open. I'm at 425 West 61. So the old DMV pharmacy, officing with the EDA director there.
Sweet.
So I'm in and out of the office and meetings and such, but feel free to pop by anytime. I'd love to talk about housing, what you folks are doing, and I've been encouraged to see some of the changes that Patrick and Mike and others have worked on with you folks on zoning and such. So yeah, just want to make the introduction and say hello.
Oh, we can talk about zoning for a long time, I'm sure.
Yes, everyone's favorite topic.
I don't mind.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much.
Cool. Thanks,
Thank
Jason.
you.
Thanks, Jason.
Anyone else? Everybody else is on the agenda, so. All right, so we'll close the open forum, move on to the consent agenda. Typical 3 items on the consent agenda. This meeting's agenda, the previous meeting minutes, and the payment of bills. There's a 4th item on there, the Grand Marais Music Collaborative or Music Collective, I can't remember ever more quickly. Music Collaborative, I was right the first time. Liquor license for their music festival this coming summer. As it was in the past, pretty much the same layout for that. So that's on the consent agenda. We can pull something for discussion, or I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Anybody?
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Perfect.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
your friendly neighborhood city attorney here. Since Anton is remote, you got to do roll
roll
call
call.
votes.
I was wondering about that, because I didn't know if he was the only one who had to call it out, or if we all had to call it out.
We all have, or you all have to call it out. We also need to see Anton too. So I see you now, Anton.
Yep, no hiding. All right, so let's do that again. So we had a motion and a second. That still stands. We'll go through the roll call vote. So Anton, you start.
Aye.
Craig.
Aye.
Tracy.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, so we'll keep moving along. Next thing on the agenda, Go Dog North Shore license agreement. So you guys want to come up and talk to us a little bit about this? Or do you just want to sit back there and let us talk about it?
I think you can go ahead and talk, yeah.
All right.
All knows about it.
Yeah, so in our packet, we have a license and service agreement with Go Dog North Shore. This governs roughly the next 4 years of a partnership with the group. Goes over not only whose responsibilities are what, but also goes over the funding of it, and also the operational rules, like what's expected for operational rules. Does anyone on the council have questions for GoDog or for anybody on this, I
There's
guess?
2 modifications to what's in your packet. On page 4 at the bottom, there's the insurance requirements. And in the packet, it shows $1.5 million with a $3 million annual aggregate. And it's going to be $1 million and $2 million instead, which they've already got arranged. And then there is an attachment, which is the Exhibit A depiction of premises, and they've submitted their latest version of that, which Patrick can show you.
It's not in here, you're
It's not in
saying.
the packet.
But he's
we've
got
a
it, you can
copy
pop
of
it up on the
so
screen, right?
We'll just put it up on the screen, Chris, you can look at it. But it's basically what you've seen before, with just maybe some finer details added after they've spent some time on the site, laying it out, thinking about it.
As far as driveway is concerned, or?
Well, just where the fence is gonna go.
Okay.
The idea of a small dog area down in the lower right, and then, where the parking area, the
Okay.
driveway and entrance is. So this will be the picture that's attached as Exhibit A, depiction of premises.
Can you see that, Anton? Yep, that was a yes. He was muted, but I saw his lips.
I'm familiar.
Okay.
So the tan area is the small dog, right?
Yes.
Okay. This is an eye test.
Yeah, right, exactly. 200 feet from,
Okay.
So you guys got all your parking, all that stuff figured out?
Yeah, we have the entrance permit from the county. The lot's out of the right of way. We've got an address with the emergency services of the county. We walked around with Ms. Travis from Wetlands. Yeah,
Yeah, this is it. Once we pass this, they'll provide their insurance certificate, they'll be ready to go.
yeah. So, I mean, does anyone have any questions about the agreement itself, the language that's in it, the terms that are in it, or be willing to entertain a motion about it?
If it's kosher for me to do it from afar, I read through everything, and I'd like to make a motion to approve. Oh shoot, I'm sorry, I don't have the resolution number in front of me.
There's-
There isn't, because it's a different
Just
agreement.
just a license agreement.
Then I would make a motion to approve the license agreement for Go Dog North Shore.
All right, and I'll second that one. So a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the license and service agreement for Go Dog North Shore for the dog park within
I
the
just
Sauk
have one
Bluffs?
question. Is there access for our utility vehicles in that fence?
yes.
Yeah, there's a gate where the electric lines are in the fence. Yeah, we talked about, we probably will just padlock it with our city padlock, and we're the only ones that need to be able to open it, so.
Probably better for you guys too, because then you don't have people
Don't
just,
want to worry about lots.
yep, let's not have gates open when they don't have to be open.
Exactly.
Cool. All right, any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none, go to the roll call vote. Anton, your vote.
Aye.
Craig, your vote.
Aye.
Tracy, your vote.
Aye.
I am an aye. The license is approved. So we'll get your insurance information, and then we'll get this signed, and be ready to roll.
All right.
So,
Thanks, you guys.
hooray, that's really exciting.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kathy.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
You guys.
All right, so, moving right along, Planning Commission report. So, Craig, you're on Planning Commission, right? No, it's Anton.
Anton is.
Aye.
Anton and Michael.
Anton and Michael, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got two things on here. We've got the Walter home occupation conditional use for the R1 district, and we've got a fencing setback variance, which is why Cassidy's here. Do you want to go through a little bit of the background on these, since you go to the meetings?
Are you talking to me?
That's to you, Anton.
Okay, sorry, I can't see if your eyes are looking at the screen or what.
It's true, yeah.
Are you, yeah, so I joined in and listened in to the meeting, but I did not participate. I was on the road then as well. But yeah, for both the items on the agenda, if we start with the first one, there really didn't seem to be too much of an issue. Can you guys hear me okay? Is it
Yep,
all right with
you're great.
wind and whatever? Okay.
Sea spray waves.
Yeah. No, it seemed like the members present didn't really have much of an issue with the idea of the work at home, the manufacturing side of it. I think Ben had some questions, about hours of operation of production. There's not retail happening on site. It's really just the production side of the sandal business that he's talking about. So it seemed in general there was a strong consensus in favor for it. I mean, they approved it obviously. But I think one of the questions was just like, because I think there was conversation about like a bandsaw, I remember, for cutting soles or something.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a little bit of what I remember from that conversation. And then as far as the Gecas request, it just seemed to go in line with the city, the idea of, providing safety, providing that buffer by allowing a fence to be placed where they're requesting it to be placed. It would allow privacy both from the roadside and from the private property side. And also just the safety issue with, kids being at the campground potentially and that. So there wasn't a whole lot of discussion. But, they asked questions, and I think the points were answered pretty clearly in the applications.
Very good. So let's start with the first one. So we've got Resolution 2022-10. So this is the one for the Walter conditional use permit for a home occupation. So understanding that the conditional use does not allow for retail, and also he's made it very clear that this is all contained within the home. And so the noise is, we're not expecting the noise to be a problem for the neighbors. We do have this resolution 22-10 with the findings and criteria for approval. Anybody feel strongly on that or want to discuss it more?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
I can't place where this is in my head, especially when I see it surrounded by unimproved.
6th Avenue West.
Right, so that's one off from the,
Just Michael Gary and I basically are the neighbors, right? Just
but where's the
a block west of the courthouse.
That's what I thought. So where's the it says it's surrounded, immediately surrounding this are unimproved and tax.
Forfeited, county administered. I think he's talking about the parking lot.
It's
The
the
county
Dockin
property.
property's
Below
unimproved.
Dockin property.
Property above 3rd Street.
Right below
Between
Oh,
6th
okay.
and 8th is unimproved.
the yellow house.
Yeah, all
Okay.
right. But when it said surrounded, I was trying to think of a spot that was total. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now I get it. All right. Thank you.
Can we change the title so that it doesn't say chiropractic office?
Is that what it says?
Yeah, there should be an updated version too that also includes an
Yeah.
additional statement at the end.
Yep, and we got those sent out in our email before
But
the
I'll bet
meeting.
it didn't change that.
Yeah, I'm looking at that one, and so it still says chiropractic office, Mike, so if we could just change that.
So we would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 22-10 as amended, was what we're saying here. Having it say home occupation, or, I don't know how you'd phrase that to say manufacturing or something. What's the legal term for
Oh, I
that?
see right in the title.
Because it would be a home-based business.
Yeah,
Manufacturing.
we'll just say sandal manufacturing
Okay,
as a home-based business.
gotcha. There you go. Got everything else changed. I didn't catch that either. Good eyes, Chris. Any other thoughts about this one?
You should never proof your own work. As they say.
It's got 5 people to prove the work.
Well, and it worked.
It worked. Well, 6, 7, 8-ish, anyway. All right, any thoughts or motions for Resolution 2022-10?
I'd make a motion to approve resolution 2022-10.
Okay, so there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Go ahead.
Tracy got it. He said go ahead. So Tracy got the second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Anton, your vote.
Aye.
Craig, your vote.
Aye.
Tracy, your vote.
Aye.
I am an aye. Resolution 2022-10 passes. Moving right along, we've got Resolution 2022-11, as Anton explained, the building of a fence along the highway for the property at 1615 West Highway 61. I can never remember what the property number is there. Any discussion on this one? Or motions?
Could I also request that in the last paragraph where it says, be it further resolved that the variance for Jeffrey, that we add his last name there too. You may all know who Jeffrey is, but since
Everybody
this is
knows
going to be recorded.
Right.
Did you write that up?
Kind of.
It's not important.
Not important. All right, so I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-11. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on this resolution? Hearing none. Anton, your vote.
Aye.
Craig, your vote.
Aye.
Tracy, your vote.
Aye.
I am an aye. Resolution carries. We'll get that signed.
And for the
Very
record,
soon.
I have no idea who Jeffrey is.
Jeffrey? No idea. Okay. All right. There's too many Jeffreys around.
No.
Yeah, right.
People call them geese.
Yeah. Well, I wonder why, right?
Thanks, y'all.
Yep.
Have a good one.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. All right, moving right along. Main conversation of the night, likely. Certain level of conversation on this is on mobile concessions. So in your packet, we do have a model license for a mobile concession vehicle. We also had Tracy send out a bunch of other models for how to deal with this sort of thing from other communities of different sizes, which was really helpful for me to kind of edify the different areas of the topics that we need to be looking at if we're going to be doing this. And also it was a good reminder to see that the council has not yet made a decision on whether we're going to allow this or not. And so the council needs to make a decision one way or the other, and or continue to look at our options for how we can solve this issue or deal with this issue. So with that said, I guess we'll open it up for discussion either on the mobile concessions vehicle license that was included in the packet, which is based off of the Winona license, but changed with Grand Marais in mind. Within this, let me get to the back of this conversation. Exhibit A would be the regulations. There are some special considerations in Exhibit A for Grand Marais, such as Fisherman's Picnic, and size that they can, how they handle their garbage, things that we had talked about in our previous meetings, and does not yet have clearly lined out location or some of the other issues that we had discussed. So those are some things. This is a model, and there's still more definition to be had about it. So any thoughts that initially pop into your head, conversations that we should have regarding this discussion, or this topic, I guess. This is the discussion.
I think I lined most of my thoughts out in what I sent out. But my first thing is, we need to decide if we even want to allow this on public property. I have gotten some feedback on that. That is the issue for most people that I've gotten comments on.
Do you mind if I read what you sent out in the email, just because other people haven't had a chance to?
Oh, okay.
see that.
I
It's not
wasn't
part of
sure
the-
what
All these people have.
Yeah,
Oh,
but just for
okay.
the public
Public
record.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is what it says. It says, I don't believe the council decided if we want to provide city land for mobile merchants, which is the first decision. We asked a lot of questions such as what land might be available, but there was no group consensus. We need more than just the Winona example to begin constructing a license and or ordinance for this, whether it is on public or private land. The issues and considerations for our smaller community are very different than a large urban center. After reviewing several communities, there is more we could glean from reading how they have handled this. Then you have Des Moines, you have a small town. What was that small town called? It was like Hanksburg or Wickenburg.
Wickenburg, yeah.
Wickenburg,
Arizona.
and yeah, and a couple of others. Let's see,
All the
was
way
Indianapolis. So I mean, there's definitely a good selection of different yeah, good selection of different ones. And a document. Did you write up that document? The mobile merchants ordinances document that was in here, this one?
Yeah, well, right, the very part I put in red that I did was copying up another article, but then the rest are all my comments
Yeah.
underneath. It just, we need a more organized conversation, and what are all our issues to consider. But the other piece I liked about that article I was reading is really broadening, so we could do a better job of thinking this through. What are all the possibilities of services and tangible products that can come from a mobile situation?
Mhm.
And that really got me thinking too. You know, there could be seasonal things, like someone coming in providing tax services. Just about anything. It was some thing, you know, dog washing services could be a mobile situation.
And there's a lot of mobile models that are getting more and more popular. For example, in the last 10 years, mobile bike shops have become a really big deal, and
Mhm.
you know, very viable in larger urban centers. However, knowing very intimately the the business plan that goes along with those, in a community like this, a mobile bike shop would not do super duper well.
Well-
But that's kind of beside the point when we're talking about the license.
Yeah, or just the fact that then maybe we are looking at someone who literally comes in for a short period of time and then goes somewhere else, too. I mean, a bike shop might come in on maybe a bike race weekend
Mhm.
and want to set up and do repairs or something like that. And, you know, no comment, good or bad, but I mean, we just need to broaden what we think about, because there are possibilities that maybe we don't envision right away, or we get to thinking only about the immediate situation that's been presented to us.
Well, and for me, I look at this conversation with using the view of the mechanisms we already have and trying to fill in gaps for the mechanisms that the mechanisms we currently have don't address. So, for example, like you're talking about maybe bringing a business in for a race weekend or something like that, or an event weekend. We already got that covered. You know, it just means that like the race event director would then have to include that in their application.
What if they
For how they're
didn't? What
using
if
it.
somebody just on their own decided, hey, I just chase these bike races and I don't affiliate with that person?
I mean, we do have mechanisms to deal with that. If it's on private property, it's pretty easy
It's a
and
benefit.
fairly common. If it's on public property, it can be handled the way Jay's describing.
Sure.
I think your first question, Tracy, is still the key one.
Mhm.
You know, there's a lot more work to do if you want to be allowing these in public spaces.
Yep.
If you don't, then I think our ordinance works fairly well right now for quite a few vendors who do get permits every year.
Yeah, and that's really what I think too, though I think it needs a little fine tuning.
Mhm.
But that is the key
It is-
spot that sticks with me.
It is really interesting too to have. I've had multiple conversations with multiple people about this over the past couple of weeks, and it's really hard to find some kind of a hard and fast, like, oh, this is clearly the will of the community, like that the community is pushing for. Because I've had people adamantly come to me and be like, you cannot group these things together. Like if you group these, like if you allow them and you have a bunch of them grouped together in one little part, it makes a little, what did they say, like food ghetto or something like that. And I was like, I don't know if I would take it that far. But then other people that I've talked to have said the exact opposite, being like, dude, create a little nook, like a little food truck nook. Like that'd be awesome. And then you could have that little space for, you know, it would be understood that that's the place to go for food trucks, food. So I mentioned that basically to have it say, like, I don't think that there's a right and wrong answer to this. There's just, we have to be clear in what we're deciding to do, if we decide to do it. And then we also have to be paying attention and be willing to go through an iterative process of how it looks, how it functions, and then how it can continue to function for the good of the community. Because like the reality that we're facing is that we are short several restaurants. Food service is very limited, and pretty much, anybody who wants to feed people is, seemingly pretty welcome right now. Now, we do want to pay attention, like what Bruce was saying, about what are the implications down the road about this, which is why I'm strongly in favor of having a limit on the number of licenses if we choose to do that. So, where do we start the conversation, though? That's
How about,
really the sticky wicket.
Tracy's question?
Do we want to do this?
Do you want to do this?
Who wants to start?
I'll start. Is that fine?
Yeah, go for it.
Unless somebody else had their hand up.
No, there's no hands.
Patrick, like rub Vaseline all over the lens or something. It's, you guys are really blurry.
It's this wide angle.
Yeah.
Dramatic.
That's right.
So I guess going through the packet, and I got a handful of messages about food trucks, and it seemed, again, they primarily focused on food trucks, not on the greater, to what Tracy speaks of, which is kind of addressing all of those possible vendors, peddlers on public space. Reading through the proposed language, I thought ultimately it looked good, looking at the locations that were cited, the one at the city parking lot, one at the, by the old little pink bike shop lot there, right across from the bathrooms, and then the big lot, and then out at Arts Point. I'm like, oh yeah, those are like really smart spots. But in the end, I'm like, I just don't, I understand people's needs and wants for the food truck side of it, but I think, to me, I feel like we almost have to address, I don't know, like what's the not legality, or maybe it is legality, of allowing a food truck on public property versus, a dog washer / whatever, somebody selling purses / whatever else, somebody's preparing taxes. Can we say no if one of these other types of operations wants to come in, or is that somehow not legal to pick and choose?
You can pick and choose, and I think it's
Okay.
appropriate for you to decide if you do want to make public space available, that there's a public need being served, and if food is
I mean,
the issue, then
yeah.
you could identify that and single it out.
I don't know if,
Yeah.
then that to me is another decision about, is that a criteria?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I see that as a potentially short-term view of where we are at. I'd like to look at a decision based on a longer term. Things come and go all the time and change.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
I
and-
get what you mean, Anton. That's a good point. What, how do we define it, of what we're trying to address tonight?
So in your view of this, do you think that in planning ahead for other types of concessions, such as other businesses that could be mobile and could roll into town for a set amount of time if they get one of these, if they were to get one of these licenses, to me it seems like if we open it up to more than food trucks, it does create a bit of it creates a bigger potential for abuse, or a bigger potential for impact on local businesses than just food trucks. Just food trucks, it seems like we could have 3 food trucks all summer long going wild and crazy, and the wait at some of the restaurants is still going to be an hour.
I don't know as that's our job to try to start running other business, or, fill that need. I don't know that that's our role, to
Well, we wouldn't
try
be telling
to
people how to run their
sol-
businesses.
Well, okay, so
No,
that's
but
why
we're-
we backing up, how to
Yeah.
solve that problem. I'm not sure that's ours role
Well-
or need to do. So that isn't, for me personally, the criteria how I would view how to do this, or, where I want to land with this. I don't mean that I want to discourage it, and I don't mean that I want to encourage it. And I also feel right now there's some really simple solutions for anybody who wants to come and put up a food. It's already a way to do this, and currently there's plenty of places to do that. And I've had a few people say they would offer their commercial land for this, so yeah. And there's
So you're
already-
questioning whether or not we even need to open up public land to it at all? Gotcha.
Thank you. Thank you for saying
I,
that.
I guess if it's possible to summarize my point, I mean, I think that's kind of where I ended up ultimately, and my thinking on it is, boy, it sure seems like a lot of work for city staff to orchestrate. I didn't see any, we'd have to come up with some price. We'd have to come up with terms to that price. We'd have to come up with, I don't know. The person that kind of brought this forward two weeks ago, they're on private property, like back on private property. And I agree. I think that there are places where there are private property where it could happen. And I think that with the things that we ask of city staff, if somebody really wants to come in, whether it's a food truck or one of these other services, I feel like there is property available in town for those owners to be able to offer that up. I guess deep down, I get excited about the idea of like maybe food trucks and like new stuff showing up, but it's like, I don't know if it's, I guess I just I don't see it. I don't know if it's worth what the administrative side of it on the city for what would be, to me, complicated to resolve. Is it a weekend? Is it a year long? Is it a 6 month? Is it a whatever? What are the terms of that? And it's a case by case thing. So it seems like a lot of legwork and a lot of juggling that would have to be done when ultimately there is private land available. It just costs money. And if those public, if we have a responsibility in the city's interest, like financially, if we know what the going rate is on these private properties for a month or whatever the time frame is, like, then are we like, all of a sudden having to do the research on what that means? I guess if every public or private property gets filled up with food trucks and picks up their peddler's license, that's a pretty easy process for the city staff to deal with. I don't know, maybe that's being ignorant to think that we don't need to start looking at it, but I guess I don't know if it's a problem, unless the problem is that they're just these vendors are trying to do it for cheaper somewhere else and are requesting the city to pick up the slack on that.
Craig?
Okay.
Thoughts?
Well, I kind of agree with Anton and Tracy along the lines that we're kind of going here, but I also think about we're trying to solve, we're putting the city in a position to try to solve a problem of peak needs for restaurants. And I don't, like a busy Friday, busy Saturday. And I'm not sure if that's our job to get into that. I know we have private businesses that struggle to keep up on high demand weekends, high demand nights. And it might be staffing problems. It might be just because we're busy. And this isn't the only town that's busy. Other towns have the same issues. Even bigger towns have issues when it comes to be dinner time and there's no place to eat. You got to wait in line. I just think that in the people that I've talked to and have talked to me, it's the private land. I think we all agree that it's working on private land. I think we all agree there's other private land available within our community. And for us to get into, at this point in time, maybe we'll change, maybe we'll have more discussions and lay this out better. I just, like Tracy said, where are we gonna go with this? And I think just on the surface right now, I'm just thinking, I don't know if we need to go down that path of offering up public land for private business to operate off of, when we have other private businesses. For example, we have a brand new one that just opened up down the street right behind us. This is like, their first week in business, and I see they're getting a little bit more diversified on their menu board and so on and so forth. And I mean, I just think about creating competition for them, because that's basically what we're doing. In a way, I mean, especially if we put it on public land, city land, then we have to talk about all these other issues that come with it. Hours of operation, what are we gonna charge? Everything that's associated with that particular type of license, whether it's food or vending or whatever we end up putting together. So, I mean, I don't know, I just think we're dealing with peaks and valleys of use of our community. And this is, I guess, the way it is. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if the city of Grand Marais has a solution to, is more food trucks gonna ease this problem? I don't know. There's plenty of private land around Grand Marais. It's been like that for 2, 3, 4 years now since those food trucks have been there. Of course, one took the place of a restaurant that burned down, and that's their property. The other two have been created on private land because they saw a need for it, and they're doing it. But if there was so much need for it, and maybe there is, I don't know, but why aren't these other private spots around town sitting with food trucks on them? Because they're here, I'm just questioning whether we want to go down this path with the food truck situation. And I listened to Bruce Block talk, and this is kind of the same feedback I've gotten from 2 other people that have businesses in town. And I don't know, that's just how I feel. I think Tracy and Anton are I agree with how they're talking about this, whether we should do this or not. At this point in time, I don't think we should. If we want to have a long discussion on what we're going to do, how we're going to lay it out, we're not going to do that in one meeting, I don't think, because there's many things to talk about.
Especially like, listening to the comments that you guys have made.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of comments, and,
Seems like it would be-
some are good. Like same with Anton. I expect, and this is something, because I lived here my whole life, and I'm used to the fact that when the Lions Club has their Fisherman's Picnic, I expect food trucks. We all do during that event. And so we just have that, idea that they're going to be here. Actually, being on the city council now for a few years, it wasn't until last year that I actually learned why those food trucks are here. And it's because they're operating under the Lions Club's permit. I thought that, they got a permit from the city and blah, 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 blah. But they never did. It's always under the Lions Club. So, we kind of expect, as a big event, something like that, we do bring in people, at least they bring in people to help ease the burden of massive crowds. And businesses like Sven and Ole's used to operate out on the sidewalk. And bring more food out. When I used to own the Dairy Queen during the Fisherman's Picnic, I'd put a hot dog stand outside the Dairy Queen to serve more people because there was just so many people, for that particular weekend. But, that was done under the Lions Club permit, which I think efforts were made to handle the crowds for those types of things. And I just kind of, I don't know, I'm feeling personally right now that I don't know if it's needed to utilize city property for food trucks right now. That's just my take of it right now, because I mean, there are other places, if people want to put a food truck, they can. And the other thing I also observe is hours of operation, that the ones we currently have are running. So, you know, I mean, as demand goes up, their hours might get longer. I don't know, that's, you know, that's my take on it. That's how I feel, so,
Okay. Well,
you know.
Well, the way that I feel about it, I think it's a good idea for us to start talking about it and to look at how we could manage this. Now, of course, there's lots of parts that go into my thought on that. I agree that like there are public properties or there are private properties that could be hosting food trucks that are not right now, and I'm really curious to see how that's going to develop now that we're having this conversation. Because I think that before we've had this conversation and before, you know, this conversation about food trucks has kind of gone mainstream, I don't really think there was much of an economy for that space, for that purpose. You know, like people with open lots haven't necessarily been pursuing finding someone to rent from them for a food truck or some other kind of mobile business. I'd be interested in seeing how that goes now. Now, if the city were to get into this business of renting out public property for this purpose, there would be two things that I would really want to, I'd really be very careful about. One of those things is that, that like Anton was saying, we would have to figure out what private properties were charging for their space, and it does not seem like it's in the city's interest to undercut that private market for operation of business. I can see what you're saying, Tracy, about it's not the city's job, and Craig, about not the city's job to promote certain types of business over others. I see that, but I also think it's the council's job to manage public space. And when we're talking about summer peak business times, when there's these huge humps in visitorship up here and finding ways to feed people, in my mind, the food truck solution does offer a solution as far as having mobile vendors come in. In my mind, hopefully, most of or all of these vendors would be people from Grand Marais that would be hiring people from Grand Marais that would have then businesses and money staying in town, would then be able to absorb some of that bump from having busy summer seasons, and also give us a little bit more variety for food in town. As far as competition for our brick and mortar stores, I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. I don't think it's gonna hurt them at all. I think it's going to, I think there's enough business to go around personally. And shorten wait times a little bit, probably not going to cut much out of each person's business plan, or their numbers for the summer. Now, speaking of business plans, these are different business plans, right? And that's one of the things that if the city were to get into this conversation about how we're going to handle this kind of vendor, we need to make sure that we have an understanding of that type of business plan, and that we can issue a license that is not going to be a huge pain in the butt to enforce. But right now, when I look at other businesses, like brick and mortar businesses, they have the ability to operate, pretty much however long they want to, within legal standards. And it seems like, we could limit that in a license if we needed to. And say, for example, like if we picked the spots at Artist Point, So there's three.
Are we going into solutions already? Because I don't want to go solutions yet.
No, I'm just saying that there
You
are
are.
ways that we can have discussions, and if I'm jumping the gun on that, then,
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that we've brought up different concerns about different things that we would have to discuss, and I'm saying we have the ability to
Yeah.
implement those things. Like
We
there's,
do.
and I do think that it is our job to manage public space. Now, if we don't see the need, if we take a look at this request and say, like, private property owners can solve this, then that's a solution, right? Like, that's a decision. Then we go with it. If this comes back to us, then we're gonna have to have the conversation again. To me, it seems like if we put in the energy to get a licensing process done for this type of business and limit it, then we're kind of ahead of the curve. Like, that's where.
If you're not gonna allow this on public space.
I think we're creating the curve. If we allow it, if we go through with this, we're creating it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't go through it if we're not gonna.
And, I mean, it's not about coming back to you. It's your decision to allow it or not allow it at any time. And I don't think that you should assume that you're going to allow it in the future if you didn't allow it today. You don't have to have this conversation ever. If you're deciding that core question, we're not interested in providing public space for this use, that's the end of the conversation until you change your mind.
To me, just to restate from the last meeting, this is never about competition. This is never about solving any of the problems, like enough variety of kinds of food. I agree with you, I'd love to have more variety of food, but that's just not where I wait for someone else to come and start a business that brings more variety of food, but I'd love it. I'm certainly not here to, tap down competition or encourage competition. I'm neutral on all of that. But I am really concerned about public land, because the other argument we hear is other public land that we have sitting out there, and we hear from our residents that we are maybe not getting the optimum dollars out of that land. And so when I think about here, I have to put that same argument, that's what's in my mind too. And we'll never solve our parking problem, but I'm not sure I want to aggravate it.
Clearly.
And I have, in another feedback I got today that hadn't dawned on me before, is business owners saying, do not allow a large thing like a mobile unit, I'm going to try to be neutral about that, to be parked in front of my business and block a view. When part of my business involves having like a view of the lake, and my clients or guests are sitting there and all of a sudden they're looking at that.
Well, I'll get you.
It didn't dawn on me. I read, in reading all those things that I was reading, I read all the safety issues, like certainly don't let them too close to a curb so people can't see around.
Right.
Make sure it points out into a sidewalk so they're not on the street, all those kinds of basic things. But that one is, to me, a unique piece to consider here in our community, that a business owner might not appreciate that. There were certainly other parts where they are more concerned, I believe, about competition, where it's only so many feet from an existing, similar business. I mean, let's face it, somebody could come up and say they want to start renting, which we've had in the past, kayaks. Well, we've got other people who do that in town under brick and mortar, so just throw that in as the fact that that's where I try to remind myself not to keep it just about food, because we have other possibilities. But to me, and that is the feedback I've gotten from multiple people, is it shouldn't be on public land. And similar to Bruce's comment, we're investing in our businesses and all the other pieces that go with it, and then to watch the ease and the certainly much lessening of costs to operate in that situation, we'll all run and want to do this. And I've heard that too. Why would I continue to keep my brick and mortar if I could just find a mobile whatever, a trailer, and I could certainly run my business if I was allowed to park on a parking spot. So I agree, that's another way of what Bruce said, it's a disincentive for development or to that.
I mean, I don't know what I think about that agreement now, or that argument, but,
Well,
you know,
you've got local business owners giving that to you.
well, I mean, I get that, I understand that. I'm just, as a business owner, like, the reason I didn't go to a mobile bike shop was because it didn't work, you know, and not because, like, I could have made money doing that, I just wouldn't have made as much money. I find it hard to believe that someone would give up a brick and mortar store that they already have within the community to operate a food truck. But it.
Don't
but-
say
Well,
food truck.
you gotta remember, it's all about location, location, location. I mean, haven't you heard that before?
Yeah, and I mean,
you know,
these are all hypotheticals
those
as
are
well,
all
you know, and so
part of this.
the pros and the cons
issue.
of hypotheticals, talking
Well-
about
Yeah,
whether or
no,
not
I know.
these are what people are or are not going to do is impossible to predict, really. But for what I'm hearing from you guys, if I'm going to summarize, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to put words into anybody's mouths, but it sounds like, Anton, you're saying we need, like that this is all. You're not interested in chasing this down very much farther. Similar, Craig?
No.
Similar? So then I think that we should probably quit chasing it a little bit for a while. Quit chasing it until the mood changes, if it does. So, is that good enough for everybody?
Yep.
Okay.
I want to reiterate, I appreciate the fact that Mike and Chris went through and made the language applicable to Grand Marais and even signified on the map the locations. I do appreciate that, but I think, yeah, I'm not ready to go any more forward than that.
The only thing I would like to do is make sure, when Christina came that one evening, that's when I was totally unaware that we do not require people with their mobile to have like their garbage containers out there, or we do? Is that a missing?
We don't, and because it's on private property, we don't require anybody who has private property and operates a business to provide trash receptacles.
I would like to think about that and maybe make a change to our ordinances around that.
We also don't require residences to have garbage service in the city of Grand Marais.
No, we don't. We have outcome-based regulations that talk about not allowing accumulations of waste, but we don't have more proactive, you need to have this many cans for this much space, or that kind of language.
What about is that a possible thing to put into the permit?
It is, for sure. If you want to look at that.
That would be something we could either put on an agenda or put on a work session to look over that particular ordinance and make changes as we think are appropriate.
Well, I'll send it out to folks what the ordinance is now. My recommendation is there's no point in trying to make those changes be applicable to this season, because we know how to operate this season and we want to spend some time thinking about it anyway. So if you've got a chance to look it over in the next month or two and have comments, and then we can add it to an agenda or a work session agenda for more discussion, if that makes sense.
That's fine.
Okay, sounds good. Any other comments on this before we move on to council and staff reports?
Bear with me.
No, it's good, that's why I asked.
So when you made the comment, like things that are important to you, or how you were thinking this through, and you made the comment, well, I hope, this comes from a Grand Marais based or, a local based business or local staffing. Well, once again, those are assumptions. You know what I mean?
Clearly, there's a lot of
I get what
assumptions
you're
about
saying, and that would make everybody feel great, right? We somehow encourage more smaller businesses within our community and the whole thing about economic development. But the whole point of this, or one of the, not the whole, but one of the points of addressing this issue is mobile means people from from elsewhere. A large, can be. And sure, sometimes where we're at, we're more remote. We may not get that as much as other people, but that is the concept. Either at a smaller level, if you're in a large urban thing, you don't find a permanent parking spot. You are going all the time to events, whatever. That's the whole point of being mobile. You don't get a long-term space. But we also need to address the concept that it wouldn't necessarily be someone local doing that too. And then how does that affect things? So just,
Understood.
for,
Yeah.
future, why I think it is important to think about this so that we don't it sounds good
Mhm.
when you say it's all local, then I can really get behind this better. But that doesn't mean that's what would end up happening. So I just like to
Yeah.
always think that through when I try to.
Well, and just looking at certain filters that we would put on we could put on the license itself, making it for a long term, making it pay itself off over a certain amount of time, like that kind of a thing. Seems like there would be an investment potential for people who, are already in the community. But like you said, there's no way we can guarantee that, and also we have limitations on ways that we can be picky about who gets those licenses if we authorize them. So, we can't just tell somebody who doesn't have a 55604 zip code they can't get one.
Why not?
Maybe we can. I always just assumed that was
Discrimination
discriminatory
or
something like
Yeah,
that.
we'd hear about it later.
I'm not sure whether that's true or not, and luckily we don't have to think about it right now because you've already decided.
Yeah.
Right, yep. So moving on, council and staff reports. Anton, why don't you start, because it's getting dark where you're at.
I don't have anything. Our next EDA meeting is next Tuesday. So at the following meeting, at our next meeting, I'll have some more to share there. We already discussed the planning commission stuff.
Cool. Craig, anything?
Yeah, let's start with the PUC meeting. SIMPA was up and did a little presentation to the PUC, which was kind of nice. We got and I know you guys all got this in your box. Did you get a copy of this?
Maybe they don't know yet.
Oh,
I put them all in there.
oh,
When did
yeah,
you
if
put
you
them
check
in
your
there?
box,
I just
Do
checked
I
my
have
box.
it?
I asked
Oh,
that
you
you
do.
all get one of these because it's kind of a little glance at SIMPA and how they're governed and how we fit in and how it all works and what their plans are in the future. And it's kind of gives you a quick education of our electric system and how it functions and works. And so it was very nice to have them here and to give the talk. And what else happened at that meeting? Oh, we also approved a new EV charging rate, which would be linked with homeowners that want to go off-peak, charge on off-peak rates, so they can get a cheaper rate for electricity, the same as off-peak residents get a cheaper rate for electricity if they're heating their home. So that rate will be the same. It's going to be competitively priced the same as off-peak for anybody. So that was something that Shane is working with. They'd have to install certain equipment by an electrician to make sure it's all approved by our electrical guys before they can be functioning and running for them. So that was basically the two things at the PUC meeting. Then we had a park board meeting yesterday, and I guess we just reiterated, we just talked about the KGM is back working on the dock system, the boat launch area, to work on phase 2, and then that'll bring us all the way up to where the parking lot ultimately gets finished. That'll be probably sometime late in July, August. August maybe?
Oh, that's the safer bet. Yeah.
August, yeah. I know their timeline is like late July, but we're kind of probably August. But anyway, so that project is back on track, and they're working down there. Now, there's a big crane down there they're putting pylons in around where they have to pour concrete for the boat ramp. And then we also talked about, that we already talked about here, was the bid on the Overlook Landing project, that we just did not approve, and that's got kicked back to us, the park board now, to discuss how to proceed. So I think with CJ Fernandez and the park board, we'll look at what we want to do there on how to proceed with that project to try to get it more in line with budget that we had budgeted for that. What else? We didn't have a golf report, but I guess the snow melted finally. It's been wet up there, but it's drying out now, and somebody said that golf course is in pretty good shape, so it did make it through the winter pretty well, I guess.
Seems like they have some parts roped off because they're still pretty squishy. but
Still
the
wet,
greens
yeah.
look amazing, so.
We did approve some special events applications, some more busking in the park. And then also, I think the Lions Club permit was on that, and also, what was the other two? There was two that got added at the end, the Lions Club and, what was the other one?
Radio waves?
Can't remember. There was 1, 2, 3, 4. There was 5 of them anyway. Music busking, music, and then Lions Club and something else. Anyway, we approved those, and they're same ones we've always approved year after year, so. Anyways, I think there was some, we talked a little bit about gas prices and if that's affecting reservations to our park, and I guess they are fielding some cancellations, but as soon as they cancel, it looks like we're filling them, so. These are people that probably made reservations early on in the season when the door opened up to hit the reservation system, and then they probably booked maybe they're doing a tour or some kind of thing, and maybe they're realizing now we're not gonna maybe make it to Grand Marais, or maybe we're not gonna, or cut down the number of trips they make up here, I don't know.
More
But
cancellations.
we are fielding more cancellations than normal, but they are filling up after they cancel. So once the website sees a vacancy, somebody snatches it up. So at least we're booking people yet, and that's a good thing.
I suppose that's a good problem to have.
Yeah. So that's about it, I guess, for my review.
Cool. Tracy?
I just have a question, and if I already asked this one, just tell me. I saw this survey from the county for the short stay rental deal.
Oh, yeah.
And I have forgotten, did I ask already, do we have a city representative on that? What is our participation on that project?
That's actually on my list, so
Oh,
I'm glad you
okay.
asked.
Thank
We're
you.
invited, and
Mhm.
you can select someone to be your representative to be on the county's working group.
Okay.
I also told Tim I intend to at least observe, if not participate in the meetings as well. And then, so the last time it was Tim Kennedy and I that went up there. So if there's somebody that has a particular interest in it, or if it's just one of our planning commissioners that, because it seems mostly related to a zoning issue, if there are going to be things,
Anton gives that idea.
then, yeah, they're looking for a name.
I'd
Go ahead, what?
I'd do that.
Okay.
You would
Okay.
do that. I was gonna volunteer Michael because he's not here, but
Go Anton.
that's even better.
Thanks, Anton. I'll let him know.
Yes,
One,
and then let me know, so I actually show up.
Fair.
Well, that'll be up to Tim.
one other question, do we participate in, they bought the software to monitor, do we participate in that?
We do not.
Could we?
I think that's one of the questions that's worth exploring. So, well, the first time they had their conversation about it, we were even wondering, do we want to participate in their licensing?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's still an open question and worth exploring. And now that they've got some years under their belt of how it works, hopefully we'll learn a bit about that and be able to come back and talk about it.
Yeah, I'd really like to at least be gathering that data. to know where we sit. That would also help, I think, inform a better decision about any licensing or whatever steps, after that, but, okay. Thank God I didn't already ask that. Forget. Yeah.
I thought you were gonna ask about bathrooms.
Oh, yeah, I can move on now, can't I, to new topics?
We got a list, don't worry.
Other than a lot of communications with people around the community, I didn't have any meetings, so I don't have anything to report. Mike, you have stuff though?
Well, other than that issue, thanks for bringing that up, Tracy. I just want to follow up on the 2 meetings last week that I wasn't at because I was homesick. But the EV charging rate is a pilot program, so we're limiting it just to a handful of folks. And I imagine there's people from a lot of different perspectives that have opinions about electric vehicles in general. So I just want to point out that we have a climate action plan, and the idea of having electric vehicles is one of the components of it. That electrification of fuel sources is one way that we can address climate change in our climate action plan. Even if you don't believe that that's a good idea, or you're not sure whether it's going to happen, the electric industry is pretty sure it's going to happen. And so we need to be learning about how to do this. And what does our system look like with significant amounts of EV chargers on it? So that's really part of our motivation behind it, is climate action plan, but also we just need to know how to do this because it's going to happen.
How would one sign up for said group of initial people?
Contact our esteemed Shane, and we'll put you on a list if anyone's interested in that. And just to give a little more detail about it, it's a cheaper rate at night, like we offer for other things. But there's a difference between off-peak heat, where you can have storage and still use the heat during the day, and EV charging, where you might want to charge during the day. And so there's a higher price during the day and a lower price at night, but you can use the charger anytime you want. Yeah, if there's anybody interested in more details about that, you can contact us at City Hall, and we'll be happy to talk about it. But I just wanted to add that
Now,
little bit of background.
This is just the hookup. You're buying your own charger?
Yeah, you're taking care of all the equipment. The only thing that we're being involved in is the pricing structure.
Got it.
And so it's a pilot program because we want to know, is pricing structure even an issue in the market, or is it not? How do we get involved in people's decisions in a way that's useful for the electric utility, but also is something that people are interested in doing?
It would probably be used more by people who are, it depends if these aren't off-peak, are they?
The ones out here?
If
No,
you're a
those are
visitor and you want to utilize off-peak charging, can you?
No.
Not unless a business had it installed
Yeah.
and it was off-peak.
If a business did, but that's not what we're talking about with this pilot.
No, I know, this is more of a homeowner.
Yeah.
So this is a way to tell a homeowner that if you have an electric vehicle, you can charge it at a lesser rate if you want to do it between these certain hours at night.
Yeah. These chargers of convenience are not designed to be a lesser rate.
No,
Although
yeah.
the level 2 chargers are still pretty reasonable.
Okay.
Enough about EV chargers for now, unless you want to come to a PUC meeting. Planning Commission also spent a good amount of time talking about a preliminary plat application that Chris Skilden made.
Right.
And would have been on your agenda today, but for a few questions we still wanted to sort out with him, that we met with him and his team earlier this week and are sorted out. So it'll be on your agenda next time. We'll be looking at his proposed subdivision with
24 hours.
potentially more, and potentially some other, multifamily and single-family options. But an extension of municipal utilities is really the big news, I think. We've been talking about that, and here's a private entity that's willing to invest in an extension of municipal utilities for additional housing, and it's really quite exciting. So that'll be on your next agenda.
Is that the north side of 7?
South side of
South
7.
South side is 7.
Yeah, and it's just
West
about
end
the
of-
west side of city limits.
Okay. I think I know now. That helped.
Big chunk of land.
Okay.
Anything else?
That's all I've got. Oh, no, can't forget the most important thing. Mike Taylor wants to mow parks for us, so please approve the hiring of Mike Taylor as a seasonal park maintenance worker.
Go,
Oh,
Mike,
wow.
go.
So we don't have a memo for that or anything?
No, it just came up today.
It just came up? All right, so
Thank
is
you.
there a motion to approve this hire?
I make a motion to approve Mike Taylor to lawn care?
Seasonal
Seasonal.
park maintenance
Maintenance.
worker.
Okay.
I hope he
seasonal
knows all the
maintenance.
things that entails.
All
Has to
grass
fix
blades.
everything.
Oops, I should be giggling while I'm saying
There's
this,
a motion.
shouldn't I?
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Glad to
Welcome
have
back, Mike.
Yeah, well, good to have Mike on the team.
Yeah.
Anton, your vote.
Aye.
Craig, your vote.
Aye.
Tracy, your vote.
Aye.
I am an aye. That is approved. Anything else? We have concluded our business for the evening. We are adjourned. Have a good time, Anton.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Good
night.